トビデオ
I tend to be a little Americentric when I do my history of anime's impact in the West. It's not entirely my fault. I'm an American citizen and I'm way more familiar with the ins and outs of the business as it pertains to my home turf. But that's still no excuse to go this long without providing a look at one of the biggest anime distribution companies in the early days of the Western anime fandom. A company that's not American, but actually comes to us through our English neighbors across the pond. If there was any business that defined anime in the 90s through their licenses, perhaps even more so than Streamline or CPM, it was Britain's own Manga Entertainment. What made Manga Entertainment so unique for an anime distribution company was, unlike their American counterparts, they were not an independent company. Manga Entertainment actually began life as a subsidiary of Island Records, the record company that kickstarted the careers of bands like King Crimson, Sparks, and U2, as well as introducing the world to the homegrown Jamaican genres like ska and reggae. Founded initially as Island Visual Arts by label head Chris Blackwell in 1987, the company was originally meant to distribute music videos and concert footage of their bands. But sometime in 1991, they were looking to branch out, and division head Andy Frayne somehow landed the UK license to a little anime called Akira. It was a massive success, and Frayne, quickly seeing the future in this newfangled anime, established a specialized label called Manga Video. Business grew fast as they were able to license all the big anime that were hits on VHS at the time, so fast that by 1993, they were able to establish operations in Australia and enter in a business partnership with Central Park Media in America, which is why a lot of those companies' licensing catalogs tended to blend together. By the mid-90s, business was doing so well that Frame was able to buy his way onto the production board for Production IG's biggest project at the time, Ghost in the Shell. Frayne saw this as the next Akira, and he wanted Manga Video to have first dibsies, so what better way to do that than to help foot the bill. Ghost in the Shell came out in 1995, and while it did well with critics and at the art house box office for it to not be a bomb, it was way more of a slow burn in VHS sales than Frayne had anticipated. Manga Video's actual big success that year, Ninja Scroll, was given a far less extravagant and expensive release by comparison. Co-producing Ghost in the Shell and releasing it into theaters took a huge chunk out of Manga Video's coffers, so much so that Frayne ended up resigning from the company and former Smash Records head Marvin Gleischer took over as CEO. Under Gleischer, Manga Video's first goal was to recoup the costs from Ghost in the Shell's underperformance. This meant buying up cheap licenses for anime that fit a certain criterion, anime that could be marketed as edgy or gritty or cyberpunk. This begot an incredibly English term known as beer and curry anime. Anime that didn't have to be quality so long as it could conceivably entertain young, rebellious men on a Friday night as they sit down with their Heineken and tikka masala. And this is one of them.
Perhaps if I find the answers I'm looking for, we might meet again. Hey, yay.
In the distant future, humanity has finally slipped the surly bonds of Earth and have colonized the moon. What was once a bleak gray wasteland marked only by forgotten NASA equipment and a faded American flag is now full of bustling domed metropolises. A planet Earth away from planet Earth. And before any of you ask if this strangely sounds like another anime we've covered, just hold your horses already. Our hero, Yoshiyuki Otomo, is a member of a team of spies for hire called Bounty Dog. He has been given a mission to travel to the moon and investigate the Constance Corporation and their involvement in a clandestine operation that's only known as Project Kaguya. But while deep in the weeds in the mission, Yoshiyuki has a chance encounter with a mysterious blonde girl who goes by the name Inez.
You remembered what I once told you, didn't you? That I'd wait for you here, on the moon.
Yeah, enough of this rubbish. Tell me who you are, I'll...
Not only is her behavior suspect, maliciously hindering his mission at one second, then tearfully begging for his help the next, but she also bears a resemblance to an old flame of his named Yayoi, who died under mysterious circumstances years ago. Who exactly is Inez? Is Yoshiyuki willing to throw his entire mission in jeopardy just to find out more about her? Or could there be a connection between her and Project Kaguya?
You mustn't leave it until she wakes up. If you do, you won't stand a chance against her.
1994's Bounty Dog is an anime that is emblematic of where the distribution business was in the mid-90s, dropping pennies for low-rung titles that contained any amount of blood, nudity, and gritty cyberpunk action to be distributed to the unwashed masses. A desperate bid to keep the adolescent crowd, who had gotten their gateway fixed on more quality titles like Akira and Ninja Scroll, hooked on their product. If it was anime that could conceivably be set to music by the Prodigy, it was golden regardless if it was good or bad. With Bounty Dog, I was going in expecting this to be another Root Search or Sword for Truth and the like, but then I found something a little more different. Something about Bounty Dog suggests that, at one time, there was ambition behind it. It was made by respected workhorse studio JC staff, production partners included powerhouse companies like Toho and King Records, and character designs were done none other by Ghost in the Shell's original creator, Masamune Shirow, which, aside from the I'm assuming low price, might have also been the bait Manga Entertainment took in getting this anime overseas. And I think it just goes to show you that even with big names and companies attached to it, an anime can still turn out to be a stinking hunk of second-rate science fiction. Bounty Dog is not good. Behind these seemingly gripping Blade Runner-esque visuals is a story brought down by underwritten characters and some very questionable decisions in direction. The trademark laughable 90s manga video dub is just the cherry on top.
What the hell are you two girls doing in here? Christ, you're gonna kill him!
Breathe in the air. Be afraid to care. We're about to go to the dark side of the moon and see what made Bounty Dog race to an early grave. Now, those of you who are familiar with Bounty Dog, or those of you who are currently watching the footage happening on screen right now, you can probably guess what we are going to be talking about first.
I prefer the clear plastic handles myself, because when you look through them, everything turns kind of yellow and wonky.
Bounty Dog does not look like it takes place on the moon as it does take place in Mexico. Most of this anime is color graded with this sickly looking yellow-green filter. And when I say most of this anime, I don't mean 75% of this anime. I don't even mean 90% of this anime. I mean at least 99.9% of this anime has this type of color grading. Sure, it will jazz things up by adding a blue filter, a red filter, and maybe a purple filter. But it's still the same type of filter, a very uniform screen that overlays the picture rather than feels a part of it. None of the information I could find really susses out if this was an intentional choice by the director or if it was a simple cost-cutting measure. If it was the former, I would have to guess that Bounty Dog was trying to ape Yoshiaki Kawajiri and his use of intense color timing where one color dominates a scene. The difference there, though, is that Kawajiri's choice of coloring is far more deliberate. He colors his characters in a way that they always stand out within the scenery, and even in the scenes with singular color, his use of lighting and shadow makes the subjects and actions of the scenes easy to read. Here, the color grading does not help in establishing any sort of mood or style, and in fact just smothers everything. Nothing is added by this color grading, and instead a lot is taken away. There's plenty of good visuals in Bounty Dogs, like Atsushi Takeuchi's detailed backdrops and mechanical designs creating an intricate cyberpunk city, and there's some excellent Sakuga moments. There's a sick firefight on the rooftop that caps off the first episode, with Yoshiyuki having to dodge burning explosions launched by a whole squadron of rocket infantry. And then there's a scene animated by Toshiyuki Tsuru where Yoshiyuki takes out two bodyguards using some CQC and his own bandana. Kinda like something out of a real spy fiction. There is artistry to be found here in Bounty Dog, but the fact that it looks like it was filmed off a Game Boy just makes it more visually uninteresting than it actually is. My eyes were glazing over watching this in one session. There was one incredibly brief cut where it looked like there was no filter, and it was water in a desert for me. As for Masamune Shiro's character designs, they're alright. His designs are super angular and have recognizable shapes to them, especially Inez with her blonde hair, but once again, they do get lost by the color grading. It makes it especially frustrating when, skipping ahead a bit, Inez has to fight evil clones of herself, and there's not a noticeable difference between her and the clones, which, combined with the ugly filter, makes those fights a little hard to keep up with. Could you tell that this is Inez Prime killing an evil clone and not the other way around? Yeah, me neither. Speaking of characters, now's a good time to transition to the writing of Bounty Dog, the root problem of which involves a reoccurring one we've had on the show regarding OVAs, and that is time. I am young, life is long, and there is time to kill today, but that time was not enough for Bounty Dog. Though the plot appears to be more straightforward of a routine corporate espionage project undercovering a more supernatural plot twist, Bounty Dog's story feels like it has a lot more density to it. Writer Mayuri Sekijima clearly envisioned Bounty Dog to be a bigger one than it originally being. One source I found even said that the script was originally for a radio play. So, even though the story does end up reaching a clear endpoint, it seems like everything in between the beginning and the end is paced at Mach speed, thanks to the runtime being just an hour long. This is especially apparent in the characters and how they are written. It feels like there appears to be more going on with them, but they are never fleshed out. For example, Yoshiyuki's fellow Bounty Dog companions, Kei and Shoko. Kei appears to be the more senior authority figure by the way he seems to berate Yoshiyuki for going off on his own to save Inez in the middle of a highly sensitive stealth mission, I should remind you. It feels like he takes his job in Bounty Dogs a lot more seriously than his compatriots, and maybe hints that it might be more than just a paycheck. But he never grows beyond being the authority figure up until the third act, where he goes all in on helping Inez because of this reason.
Hey, don't worry, man. I'm in for the ride. If darkness destroys the Earth, I won't get to see the Super Bowl this year.
Shoko, meanwhile, is the token female of the group and is an interesting play on one. When we first see her, she looks to be your typical hyperactive bubblehead archetype.
It's the moon! We've arrived! Hey, let me through! I want a closer look!
But then we see it's all part of her cover of being a dumb tourist. A characterization that's given an extra layer in the original Japanese by having her voice actress be 90s anime icon Megumi Hayashibara.
Yoshiyuki, これ以上勝手な真似はやめてよ.
But like Kei, she never evolves beyond just being this disapproving voice for Yoshiyuki until she no longer is come the third act. Also, there is the fact that the anime just kind of forgets to give these characters a proper introduction. I think it was more than halfway through the anime that I learned that Shoko's name was in fact Shoko. Oh, and there's also the CEO of Constance, who has no character or name to speak of since he's a total red herring. The only real characters who do get enough screen time for the audience to see their whole personalities are Inez and Yoshiyuki. And what we do see is still very little because there's not much there. Inez acts as both this angelic guide / damsel and quirky antagonist via her clones, making her very versatile as a plot device, a story obstacle, and an exposition machine. That last role is the role she is used the most for because after a certain point, Bounty Dog is really just her spelling out the story in between fights.
Be on your guard. You are a threat to darkness and her children, and they will try to murder you as well.
And as for Yoshiyuki, he's really just a flat self-insert character. He doesn't seem to be as devoted to his spy job as his compatriots. His relationship is not explored because Yayoi is only there to add dead girlfriend spice to his motivations, and the only reason he is even really in this plot in the first place is because Inez calls him the Chosen One verbatim.
You must destroy me. You are the Chosen One.
So yeah, the characters who spend the most time together are the ones who have the least amount going for them, and no amount of stoner observations about the moon is gonna change that.
The moon, Earth's constant companion. The two planets' fates are inextricably interwoven, but are they necessarily partners?
These are the sands of time. Each grain represents an age. The moon has two faces. Mankind has only ever seen the bright side shining down upon them, but there is a dark side, and you must come face to face with it.
Everybody knows the moon's made of cheese.
But let me get back to the whole Chosen One thing before I really get ahead of myself. In order to know why Yoshiyuki is called the Chosen One, literally by Inez, we need to do a quick plot summary. So Constance Corporation is not the real villain here. Project Kaguya, as it turns out, was a venture by Constance to harness alien energy from a being that resides on the dark side of the moon, known only as the Sleeper.
Well, sir, we are having some success containing the Sleeper with a magnetic shield. However, the Sleeper's output is continually increasing all the time.
How much longer will the shield hold?
Well, I don't know for sure, but at a guess, I'd say maybe a week.
In that case, you better pull your finger out double quick and get some answers as to what that thing's up to.
But sir, it may...
The Sleeper is the origin of all the Inez clones we see running around. But the reason why our Inez is the good Inez is because she contains some of the genes of the spirit of the light side of the moon known as Yayoi. Yayoi, as it turns out, was the same immortal as the Sleeper, but chose to help humanity evolve and eventually fell in love with one of them, i.e. Yoshiyuki. But after Yayoi was hunted down and killed by a group of the Sleeper's children, Yoshiyuki lost his arm, and Inez replaced his arm with a mechanical one that has Yayoi's spirit in it, which, in essence, makes him the chosen one destined to destroy the Sleeper before she wakes up and destroys humanity.
No, I won't let you. My body may be gone, but through Ines and Yoshiyuki, I will resist you.
Ha! I have 1,000 Ineses. I am one, but I am legion, and I alone shall reign supreme.
Ignoring how one of the plot points mentioned above is coincidentally Bionic Commando-esque, this simplistic plot is just poorly constructed on all fronts. For one thing, this really ties back into the issue of Bounty Dog not having enough runtime to really explore the plot details it presents. Yoshiyuki and Yayoi's prior romantic relationship is not delved into in any capacity, so all we have to go is Yayoi's death, which only serves to move the plot forward. As a matter of fact, the only things that are present in this anime's plot are just the stuff that moves the plot forward. Yoshiyuki and Yayoi fell in love with each other because the plot said so. Yoshiyuki becomes obsessed with Inez to the point of blowing his mission because the plot says so. Yoshiyuki is the only one who can stop the Sleeper because the plot, destiny, says so. No, really, the reason why good Inez fits Yoshiyuki with a cyborg arm embodied with Yayoi spirit in the first place is literally because it is his destiny to do so.
You had to lose your arm to fulfill your destiny.
Yoshiyuki is a hero with zero agency because Inez is always there to railroad him into the direction of killing the Sleeper and saving humanity. He doesn't take the mission to save humanity out of any sense of heroism, but because thou must.
It's not a matter of want. I have to do it for Yayoi's sake. It's my duty.
And none of this is made any better by the OVA's expedited pacing, causing a lot of the twists and turns of the plot to be revealed in such a casual manner. I actually did a double take when the anime decided to drop information that the moon is actually an artificial satellite designed by an alien race to monitor the evolution of humanity in such a matter-of-fact manner.
Yes, the moon is in fact a massive artificial observation satellite put into the Earth's orbit millions of years ago.
By the end, the anime itself chickens out of any larger aspirations it could have had. Yoshiyuki kills the Sleeper, and isn't that too broken up that Inez, and by extension the last of Yayoi's genes, have to die along with her? And on the way to the final boss, there is a moment where it looks like Shoko and Kei sacrifice themselves so Yoshiyuki can save humanity, and the anime frames it as this heavy but necessary sacrifice, but then the end scene shows that they are fine and just got a few minor wounds out of it, canceling out what little drama that could have been wrung out of Bounty Dog. This was an anime directed by Hiroshi Nageshi, whom we've talked about in the past.
I'm like a bird, I only fly away.
Punishment! Punishment! Punishment!
And though those anime as well are questionable in their quality overall, one thing that unites them is that they all work better as lively comedies than they do when they switch to heady dramas near the ends. Those are usually the points of no return for anime like those, and shows that Nageshi seems to be more comfortable when anime is more comedic in tone. Here is one of the few anime that Nageshi has done that is all drama all the time, and you can kind of tell his heart is not in it. His style of direction does not seem to be willing to sell this kind of story, and we the audience have to suffer for it. If you squint hard enough, you can slightly make out the kind of anime Bounty Dog could have been. A headier sci-fi spy story with plenty of twists and intrigue involving the supernatural. But its short length, basic script, and direction that feels perfunctory and superficial at best basically kills all promise this anime has. In turn, Bounty Dog came to represent the kind of filler content the companies were putting out to keep anime fans in the 90s sated. As long as we were paying them money to get our face of animated breast and blood, who cares if we got ripped off by seeing an underwhelming anime through a piss filter? Now that I think about it, there was no promise in Bounty Dog really. Matter of fact, it's all piss.
Damn!